As you know, today's webinar is on design and development of fluorescent OLEDs. It's my great pleasure to introduce to you our honorable speaker, Professor Dr. Narayan Krishnaswamy. He is the Dean, Research and Development, Professor, Head of the Department of Electronics and Communication Engineering at Sai Vidya Institute of Technology, Bangalore. So we are really lucky that we got his valuable time for this session today with us. He just managed his time for the session, and he has a huge experience of more than 13 years in academic and research. Apart from being a good academician and researcher, Professor Narayan is a brilliant student motivator and team builder. He earned his PhD degree from IISc Bangalore. His major area of specialization includes photonics and micro-opto-electromechanical system. He successfully completed different Government of India sponsored research projects as principal investigator, which worth more than 63 lakhs, and he holds more than 50 plus research papers, 3 patents, and presently he is guiding 7 PhD scholars. And good thing is, out of which already 3 students have been awarded with the PhD degrees. He is the senior member in IEEE Photonics, IEEE EMBS, IEEE Computer Intelligence, IEEE Consumer Electronics Societies. And he, throughout in his academics, he received many prestigious awards and recognition. I would like to mention just a few. He received the Certificate of Appreciation, Teachers Innovation Award towards promoting joyful experiential teaching by Sri Aurobindo Society during September 2019. He is the recipient of prestigious startup research grant for young scientists under Science and Engineering Research Board DST SERB. And followed by this, he was the recipient of seed money to young scientists for researcher by Vision Group on Science and Technology, Department of IT, PT and S&T, Government of Karnataka. And just a name few, presently he is the active member in different editorial boards of different international journals of repute. He is providing his best as a reviewer to different peer-reviewed journal. He received the award of outstanding reviewer recognition from Senson and Actuators B Chemical Journal in August 2018. And followed by this, very recently in 2019, he was awarded as outstanding researcher in electronics and communication engineering, and it was awarded by Global Outreach Research and Education Association, which is a registered organization. And apart from this, probably he is the first person that he guided successfully a few students from French as a candidate of Indian internship in the year 2019. It was Indo-French collaboration of internship. So just to name a few lines about him, he is the exceptional person, a truly dedicated researcher, a good mentor, a really good academician, and he is truly exceptional. He deserves truly exceptional expertise in his own area of research. So I will welcome our honorable speaker, Professor Dr. Narayan Krishnaswamy. Over to you, sir. We will looking forward for a wonderful session from you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Sudipto Das and the HOD Department of EEE for inviting me and giving a wonderful introduction about myself. So I'll just be starting the presentation without wasting any further time. I think you can see my screen. Okay. So I'll be presenting So I'll be presenting on design and development of fluorescent. I'll be presenting on design and development of fluorescent OLEDs. So the introduction has been wonderfully given by Dr. Sudeep Das, Principal IMPS College of Engineering and Technology. Thank you very much. So brief outline of presentation. So I'll be telling about the brief background theory of OLEDs and thin film deposition techniques for OLED fabrication, then fabrication and performance analysis of fluorescent based OLEDs and simulation of various OLED structures. So first, let us know what is an organic light emitting diode. Organic light emitting diode is based on radiative recombination of exciton. This particular screen photo, what you see in the screen, is basically an inkjet printed OLED panel by General Electricals in the year 2008. And this finds widespread use in displays and in lighting. OLED has several advantages over inorganic LEDs, and it can be grown on flexible substrates. And apart from that, as part of the Atmanirbhar campaign of Honorable Prime Minister, so India can become a manufacturing hub for OLED displays and export hub in future with appropriate government policy. So just to tell you what is the advances in the science and technology happening in the OLED, LG has come with an OLED display where you can, twist the OLED screen, literally pack it like paper and take it along with you. So this is how the technology is going. So next to tomorrow, you can even have an OLED, smartphone, which can be folded and kept in your pocket, and then maybe you can open and use it. So this is the kind of technology we are looking at. So in fact, some of the smartphone manufacturers are already looking at it. Right now, the cost is quite expensive, but in future, we expect even the cost to come down. So this is the basic OLED structure. You have a metal cathode, you have electron transport layer, hole injection layer, you have anode, and you give a potential difference. So this whole, and you get a light output. So we'll be understanding the structure. So these are the different layers of an OLED. So electroluminescence process involves the following steps. You have an ITO anode and the cathode, as I shown in the previous slide. This is the anode and the cathode. Then you have the electron injection layer near the cathode, electron transport layer, electroluminescent layer, where you will have the light emission taking place from the anode. You have the hole injection layer, hole transport layer. Basically, what you are trying to do is apply a potential difference between anode and cathode and have the transport of these charge carriers. This is holes and the electrons towards the electroluminescent layers for the light injection. So that is what is shown in this particular slide. So you have the electron injection and hole injection where you are having a recombination and the photon leaving the film. So this is what I am trying to show in this this one also, from the cathode, from the electron injection layer and the electron transport layer. You have the electron being transported towards the electroluminescent layer. Similarly, from the anode, you have the hole being transported through hole injection layer and the hole transport layer, as I have shown in the previous slide. So in the electroluminescent, in the electroluminescent layer, you will have the recombination taking place. You have a radiative recombination. You have what is known as an exciton formation. You have the exciton formation taking place. After the exciton formation, the lifespan of the exciton formation is quite less. After which you have a radiative recombination, and you have the electron being injected. So what is the difference between organic and inorganic semiconductors? In an inorganic semiconductor material, there is no valence band and the conduction band. And in the organic semiconductors, you have replaced by HOMO and LUMO layers. That is highest occupied molecular orbital and lowest unoccupied molecular orbital, unlike the valence band and conduction band where you have in the inorganic materials. So that is the main difference between the inorganic material and the organic material. So you have in a molecular framework being mentioned as highest occupied molecular orbital, lowest unoccupied molecular orbital. So the entire transport process and the electron formation and the hole injection and the exciton formation is totally different from your inorganic semiconductors. So I'll just tell you what is a singlet and a triplet. So this is the ground state which you are seeing in the leftmost corner. That is the ground state. From that, one electron now goes to the excited state. This is known as a singlet formation. Both the spins of the electron are in the opposite direction. You can see in this singlet, they both are in the opposite direction. So from an excited state, when it comes to ground state, you will have the light emission taking place. Now, in case of triplet, what happens is the electron which has been promoted to the higher state has the same spin as that of the this electron. So what happens here is when this electron cannot come down straight away because it has to undergo a spin flip to undergo come back. So this triplet, if you undergo a radiative recombination, the amount of energy you produce is much higher than a singlet recombination. So from a singlet recombination, if you get a light being produced in organic OLED, that is known as a fluorescent organic OLED. And in case of triplet, when you have this electron coming down, so you have you need a lot of energy to undergo spin flip again come down. If that happens, that is known as a the triplet OLED. Okay, so by the name singlet and triplet. Spin multiplicity is given as 2s plus 1, where s is the sum of the spin quantum numbers. In case of triplet, s is equal to 1, that is half plus half. So what is your total spin? 1. In case of because both are having spin in the same direction, so you will get half plus half, the spin being added. In case of singlet, what happens is half minus half, 0. So you don't have a net spin. I think you got this difference. In case of triplet, both you have net spin, half here. Therefore, you get 1. So singlet, it is 0. The multiplicity in case of triplet is 3. Hence the name triplet. When a molecular beam in the triplet state passes through a strong magnetic field, it gets resolved into 3 triplet beam. Okay. Just to understand this with the energy level diagram, you have this is known as a Jablonski energy level diagram, which is used for your organic electronics. So from the ground state, if it is what is an electron is transported into one metastable state here. So from here it gets transported to the singlet state. So when from the singlet it comes to this metastable state, then through the process of D it comes to the state C, then again comes to the ground state. If this process goes on, this is known as a singlet transition. So in case of triplet transition, what happens is it goes to what is known as an intersystem transition here. So it has to go here again. From here, from the triplet, it comes back to this metastable state, then comes back again, D process C and comes back. So that is your triplet transition to the ground state. At that time, you get a phosphorescence emission as shown in this your figure C. So from triplet, it has to come down. Okay. So another diagram which will explain you this electroluminescence process. So anode, cathode, you have the emitting layer, you have the electron injection layer, and the whole transport layer. You have the exciton formation happening in the emissive layer or the emitting layer, where the electrons and the holes recombine to form an exciton. these excitons, it can come to a singlet state or a triplet state, as in the case maybe. So from singlet, you can have intersystem crossing going to triplet, or triplet annihilation coming back to singlet. So from singlet, if it comes to the ground state, this is known as a fluorescent, or known as a fluorescent OLED. From the triplet state, if it comes to the ground state, either you can have a non-radiative decay or a radiative decay. So if it is a radiative decay, then it is phosphorescence. Otherwise, it is known as non-radiative decay if it comes back from the triplet state. Okay. So I hope you understood the difference between the singlet and the triplet. So fluorescence, it is limited to radiative transition that conserves spin symmetry. Phosphorescence, it results from Forbidden transitions where symmetry is not conserved. Occurrence of the phosphorescence is very rare and cannot be observed at room temperature. It involves transition between singlet state and the ground state, and the probability of that undergoing radiative decay is very high, and involves transition between triplet excited state to the ground state. The probability of the triplet the probability of the triplet undergoing this one is quite low, and the process is very rapid and less than 1 nanosecond. Okay, phosphorescence OLED. So this is the prototype fluorescent OLED which we have fabricated. So you have an anode, you have a cathode, we have the hole injection layer, hole transport layer, electron emissive layer, hole blocking layer, electron emissive layer. In this case, we have chosen as ALQ3, where we have taken green emitting organic light emitting diode. Therefore, we have chosen Okay. So prototype OLED is what we have fabricated. This is what's the work done in Indian Institute of Science way back in 2013. So this is the energy level diagram of the various materials that we have chosen. This is the materials we have chosen: CuPC, hole transport layer, emitting layer, hole blocking layer. So these are the various energy levels. So why we have chosen lithium fluoride, I have explained here. The chemical okay, lithium fluoride, a chemical reaction that takes place between Al and AlQ3, which leads to change in the concentration of electrons in AlQ3. I request somebody to mute the mic. See, there is some background noise coming. Thank you very much. So the dissociation of lithium atoms enables them to donate the electrons. Which leads to the formation of AlQ3 anions. These anions reduce the electron injection barrier, effectively forming a good this one. So what are the factors affecting the efficiency of OLED? I request all the participants to kindly mute the mic. There is some background noise coming from someone. Thank you. Okay, the factors affecting the efficiency of OLED. So this is the external quantum efficiency is equal to internal quantum efficiency plus NCP So the mu is called the charge balance factor. RST is the fraction of excitons formed from the injection holes and the electrons that are of singlet type. Rho BP is the PL yield from the singlet exciton, and rho NCP is the coupling efficiency. The coupling efficiency into internal quantum efficiency, you will get what is known as the external quantum efficiency. So that is what you will get. So now briefly I will be telling about the thin film deposition technique for OLED fabrication. So thin films, they can be either the thin films can be prepared either with the properties same as that of bulk counterparts or with the properties altogether different from a bulk material by proper selection of process and process parameters. So thin film I can define as thermal silicon dioxide, dielectric films, polysilicon metal films, SiO2, silicon nitride, and smart films. Deposition of uniform layers, silicon, metals, alloys, semiconductor, insulators, all this we can do deposition. So all this OLED deposition we have done through what is known as a process known as the thermal evaporation. It is the formation of the metal films for interconnection, ohmic contacts, and rectifying the metal semiconductor contacts. Films can be deposited by vacuum evaporation, sputtering, chemical vapor deposition, and plating. Vacuum evaporation can be used for the single element conductors. So this is your thermal evaporation source. This is source to the substrate. So this is the source to the substrate. So we have a vacuum chamber in which you can heat the source and deposit on the substrate. So this is a demonstration of the vacuum chamber. This is the photograph of the thin film deposition system that we have used in IASC. This is the exact vacuum chamber we have used in IASC for the deposition of OLED films. So this has a Pirani gauge, vacuum gauges, a vacuum chamber, everything. So this is a metallization process where aluminum is put in the tungsten heater. Okay, this is the vacuum coating unit. So you have the this is a vacuum coating unit. You have from the present cell, you have a heater, substrate, radiant heater, vacuum pressure. Then all this deposition was done under 10 power minus 8 millibar. So what are the advantages and disadvantages of various heat sources are just represented here. Next we go to sputtering. So in sputtering process, what happens is, I'll basically tell you with this slide. We have an inert gas like argon or something which will hit the target and remove the materials from the target and deposit on the anode. So that is what happens when you are going for sputtering. So argon ions from the plasma strike the targeted placed on the cathode and transfer momentum to the sputter the atoms from the substrate. As the process relies predominantly on the physical mechanism of sputtering, the strongly directional natures of the incident energetic allows substrate materials to be removed in a highly anisotropic manner. So this is the sputtering description. The whole process of sputtering relies on creation of plasma between the anode and the cathode. Okay, so this is the sputtering process. You have the emitted particles, low energy incoming ions, reflected particles. The energy from the energy, these ions are getting dislodged and they are going towards the cathode. So you have in the sputtering, DC sputtering. So you have plasma, anode, DC power supply being given. So what happens with the DC sputtering is when the negatively charged cathode in the DC system is bombarded by ions, if the cathode material is an insulator, the front substrate accumulates positive charges. This causes the potential difference between the cathode and anode to decrease. The glow discharge extinguished once the potential difference drops below the sustaining voltage. In practice, the time required for the cathode to acquire this is 10 microseconds. So to overcome the difficulties of the DC sputtering, we go for what is known as the Okay, so in order to overcome the difficulties of DC sputtering, so we go what is known as a magnetron sputtering. In magnetron sputtering, you have a magnetic thing being placed behind the target, so you can have the argons more concentrated towards the target, which will help in the better dislodging of the properties. This is the typical magnetron sputtering, where due to the application of the magnetic field, you have the better concentration of the AR particles, argon. So deposition of metals, insulators, alloy. Then we can also have mosaic target sputtering, where nickel titanium film. So if you want to deposit two different materials, then you go for what is known as mosaic target sputtering. So depending upon the various angles, so you can go for different kind of composition. For example, nickel 15% and titanium sector 45% is exposed. You will get a nickel titanium film of 36% to 64%. Similar thing for nickel 17%, 28%, you get a composition of 50 by 50, 60 by 40. So different composition you can get. So influence of process parameters given here. So I won't go into detail of this since it goes into thin film. So I've just told operating gas pressure, substrate to target distance, deposition temperature, substrate bias. So all this plays a vital role in the final film thickness. I hope it is clear till now. Okay. So this is the actual fabrication of organic light emitting diode we have taken. So ITO coated glass slides of 25 mm square with a sheet resistance of 15 to 25 ohms per square were used. First ITO glass slides were patented. Patented ITO glass slides were then cleaned. A custom made mechanical mask out of Kapton sheet was placed on the cleaned ITO slide, then they were loaded into the multi-source thermal evaporation chamber. The organic materials such as CUPC, TPD were evaporated. Okay. A patented ITO glass slides were then cleaned. A custom-made mechanical mask made up of Kapton sheet. Then organic materials were evaporated using a thermal evaporator, as I just explained. So very low cost effective means we have done. So this is the ITO coated glass slides. In this was an organic mask. Finally, aluminium was deposited. 100 nanometer of aluminium was evaporated at an evaporation rate of 9 Armstrongs per second. All the evaporations were done at a pressure of 16 to 10 power minus 6 millibar. Deposition rates were monitored using the quartz crystal monitor. All the materials were 99.99% purity from Sigma Aldrich. That is the company from which organic materials were procured. So this was the photograph of the fluorescent OLED which was fabricated by us. So these are the various studies which we have done from the our OLED experiments. Copper pentacyanine, that is the whole injection layer. So increasing the thickness will lead to morphological changes. Other parameters such as electron affinity and electron properties also change. So you can see at a thickness of 18 nanometers, you have the maximum current density as well as luminescence of 5000 candela per meter square. So that is the kind of light output which we have got from this CUPC. Okay. Okay, this is hole blocking layer. So this hole blocking layer has also an important role to play in the final light output of the organic light emitting diode. What this hole blocking layer does is, if you have too much holes and less amount of electrons going into the emissive layer, you don't have the effective formation of these excitons. Because as you know, electrons are minority charge carriers and holes are majority charge carriers. So somehow we have to limit the number of holes from entering the emissive layer so that the probability of exciton formation is more. Because if there are too many holes there, the minority carriers and the majority charge carriers are unable to form the exciton as effectively as they would have otherwise formed. So again, this whole blocking layer thickness has a very important role to play. It is like a control switch. So if you have a too high thickness of whole blocking layer, what will happen is no majority charge carriers will reach the emissive layer. If you have a too small a thickness, what will happen is the majority charge carriers, too many will reach this one. Again, you will not have the exciton formation. So what we have found is, so in 6 nanometer, you can see whole blocking layer thickness, you get 4000 candela per meter square, and 8 nanometer, you will get around okay. 8 nanometer, you will get a luminous efficiency of around 5000 candela per meter square, and 10 nanometer, you get a thickness of around 6000 candela per meter square. Now, when you increase to 16 nanometer, you can see the thickness being reduced to 3000 candela per meter square. So from 10 to 16, there's a drastic drop. So we have found that 10 nanometer is the optimal thickness for this whole blocking layer. So as I already told you, this thickness of BCP plays a very important role. The radiative distribution of relative distribution of holes and electrons that we have already seen. There's an optimum thickness for which the light efficiency is maximum, and that we have found is around 10 nanometer. If you go on increasing the thickness of BCP layer above 10 nanometer, then the recombination will shift from ALQ3 to BCP layer. Okay. So the plot of luminescence, this is the current density versus luminescence. We have done various devices with varying combination of hole injection layer and hole blocking layer thickness. So ITU, CUPC, TPD, ALQ3. So TPD and ALQ3 thicknesses were maintained constant, and the CUPC and the DCP thickness was varied for various thicknesses. See, I am getting the maximum light output of 6000 candela per meter square, when CUPC thickness is around 18 nanometer and the BCP thickness is around 10 nanometer. Whereas for the device 2, ITU and this one, when CUPC and BCP thickness are 18 and 6 nanometer, you get less light efficiency. Similarly for 4 devices. So all these iterations almost took 8 to 10 months of our experimental time to arrive at this. So again, the luminous efficiency versus power efficiency. So this is candela per ampere, that is the luminous efficiency. Power efficiency is lumens per watt. For various current densities we have plotted. So this is what we get now, power efficient for various devices. So luminous efficiency up to 4 candela per ampere and power efficiency of around 2.5 lumens per watt is what we are getting. So commercially we have to go up to 15 to 20 lumens per watt. This is just a prototype device. So this is the summary of results for the various devices, luminous efficiency. For device 1, device 2, device 3, device 4, and maximum luminous efficiency, and the maximum power efficiency, and luminescence. So the maximum luminous efficiency is what maximum we have got, and the luminous efficiency is measured at a current density of 100 milliampere per centimeter square. And what to say, luminescence is measured at a current density of 140 milliampere per centimeter square. So without thickness optimization, light output, this is what you get, and with thickness optimization, light output, you get something like this. So this is the end result of our research work. With lesser power output, this is the luminous efficiency, and the more power output, this is the luminous efficiency that we get. So this is the OLED spectrum. This is the input and the output spectrums. I have just plotted it. So it has a maximum the OLED at 530 nanometer, you have the maximum intensity since it is a green emitting OLED. If you change the ALQ3 layer, you can have different OLED what to say, colors. We also done some simulation work recently with respect to OLED. So this basically tells the losses. What happens is the OLED as such cannot be used. So you are suppose you want to use OLED for integrated optics or something like that. So how much the light is actually coming out, the external quantum efficiency is very important because of the glass anode and this one. The actual extracted light output will be
Excuse
slightly
me.
different. Yes.
Your slides are not visible to us, sir.
Now can you see?
No.
Okay. Thanks for it. Now?
It's okay.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. So the losses in the OLED. So I'll come back to this. So you have the waveguide mode and the extracted mode. So how much light is actually coming out from the OLED really matters, because if you are using for integrated optics or something like that, that will be very good. So this is the design of OLED structure using MOTI single anti-reflective coating. So now, in order to improve the external quantum efficiency or the actual light which is coming out from the OLED, you need to do more surface with this design. So we have fabricated with the basic design. So this is one of my students' PhD work, Chaya. So she has worked on what is known as a MOTI anti-reflective coatings. So above the glass substrate, we have deposited. Okay, we have deposited a MOTI anti-reflective coating. This is a simulation work, not a fabrication work. So you can just see this. So this is the basically MOTI. This is MOTI is nothing but an insect. So this is the insect. From this we are basically taking out the MOTI. So this you can actually take out this MOTI. Okay, so we are taking out this MOTI. You can take from an insect, and if you do like this, so you can coat just above the glass substrate before the air. So this is what the various thickness which was chosen for the simulation purpose. So the refractive index of anti-reflective coating with the refractive index of the glass. This is what we have got, and this is the thickness of the anti-reflective coatings for various wavelengths. So this was done at 510 nanometer, 520 nanometer, 530 nanometer, 540 nanometer, and the refractive index of the anti-reflective coating as well as the thickness of the anti-reflective coating. This is in nanometers, so 104 nanometers. So, so around 110 to 112 nanometers, it is fine. Okay, so this is the actual pitch of the anti-reflective coating with respect to height. So now, this is a simulation result. This we have done from what is known as the numerical finite difference time domain modeling. So you can see this is a conventional OLED structure. This is the light output or the electric field intensity which we are measuring. Exactly not the light output in the simulation. This is with respect to theta angle. That is the viewing angle from where you are viewing. So this is 10 degree, 60 degree, minus 40 degree, 90 degree. That is So depends on what viewing angle you are viewing, and this is the proposed OLED with anti-reflective coating. So you can see there's a marked improvement in the light intensity. This is 1.2. This is the electric field intensity into 10 power minus 5. So here you can see it goes up to 1.7. So there's a marked improvement by using this anti-reflective coating. So this is the cumulative power loss. Power loss with this air, only air plus glass plus OLED. So this cumulative power loss is quite constant when you are using air plus glass plus OLED. So that is what this one. This is the extraction efficiency enhancement factor for various wavelengths. You can see at around 530 to 540, you get maximum light extraction. So this is the OLED with another thing. This is not a single, instead of moth eye, you can also use single layer anti-reflective coating, SLAR. So if you use the single layer anti-reflective coating, these are the various simulation which we have tried. So again, the thickness of the anti-reflective coating, this is a single layer anti-reflective coating for various wavelengths that we have tried. Now, again, you can also use a double layer anti-reflective coating. So double layer anti-reflective coating means you will have a bottom anti-reflective coating as well as top anti-reflective coating with substrate, OLED stack and air. So if you have a double anti-reflective coating, so this is the thickness of the top layer anti-reflective coating for various wavelengths, and this is the thickness of the bottom layer anti-reflective coating for the various thicknesses. So this is the final output. So there is no anti-reflective coating in your figure A. So there you can see your maximum light intensity is around 1.3, whereas OLED with without anti-reflective coating, that is the first figure, and this is the single layer anti-reflective coating, that is your figure B, where the light intensity goes to 1.8. And for a double layer anti-reflective coating OLED, it goes to 2.1. So these are the findings with respect to anti-reflective coatings used in conjunction with the light OLED for improving the light extraction efficiency. So this is the far field intensity for single layer anti-reflective coating, and the double layer anti-reflective coating as the angle changes. For various viewing angles, you can see the double layer anti-reflective coating is much more efficient as compared to single layer anti-reflective coating. Okay. Fraction of the emitted power. Fraction of the emitted power with respect to wavelength. So that is also done with double layer anti-OLED, R plus glass plus OLED. So the this okay fine. Finally, we come to conclusion. Prototype fluorescent OLED has been fabricated. So the thickness of the CuPC layer, which was alternatively varied between 15 nanometer to 30 nanometer, and that of hole injection hole blocking layer was varied from 6 nanometer to 16 nanometer. Even though these two layers have opposite function, but they, by fine-tuning of the thickness, hole mobility is accelerated and again decelerated so that the enhanced charge balancing is achieved in the emissive layer. The specific configuration of OLED was able to yield optimized electroluminescence with high luminescence efficiency. The maximum luminous efficiency of 3.82 candela per ampere for a current density of 24.45 milliampere per centimeter square, and maximum power efficiency of 2.6 1 lumens per watt for a current density of 5.3 milliampere per centimeter square were achieved. We obtained a luminescence of 5993 candela per meter square when the current density was 140 milliampere per centimeter square. So based on the simulation results of device 1 and 2, it can be concluded that double layer anti-reflective coating was far better optical characteristics as compared to a single layer anti-reflective coating. So this type of OLED aims to build a biosensor in order to detect biochemical analytes. Also, we can use this kind of OLED. So these are the 3 publications which our group has done. So one publication is on based on our fabrication, which was published in Current Applied Physics. Then recently we have had a paper published in Journal of Nanoelectronics and Optoelectronics. Then a few of our work has been presented in SPA and OSA conference. And also we have been regularly presenting in one conference known as Photo Optics. So that is held in Europe every year. That is one of the flagship conferences held in Europe. Okay. Before winding up, So basically, our Prime Minister's dream of Atmanirbhar Bharat, I'm trying to address it here. So there's a lot of gap between research and product development. This includes final product development and commercial viability. There is a need for collaborative research work and integrate the research facilities and have centralized facilities. So there should be an involvement of private players, especially packaging and marketing. So we have done a wonderful OLED, not able to package and market it. So with the focus towards product development as part of flagship programs like Make in India and Innovate India. So products such as OLED lab on chip sensors, if indigenously developed, have good commercial potential, but also have societal relevance. So our India's strength and weakness with OLED technology and develop needs following research facilities to be integrated. Material research, indigenous manufacturing of flexible transport conducting substrate facilities such as chemical vapor deposition, E-beam, physical vapor deposition, chemical wet pen, separate clean room manufacturing space, encapsulation packaging. We have wonderful research institution, world-class research facility, but researchers are working with various design and research purpose pertaining to OLED technology has been published, but there is a need to amalgamate all this for commercial this one. I would like to thank Professor G. Mohan Rao from Department of Instrumentation and Applied Physics at IISc Bangalore, Professor G. Srinivas, Department of EC IISc Bangalore, our college trustee, Professor Jayasima, and my former research scholars who have just finished the PhD, Dr. Chan and Dr. Venkatesh. Thank you. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Participants, if you have any queries, please raise your question by typing the same in the chat box provided over there.
I thank my wonderful audience for a very patient hearing. Thank you.
Sir, one question has been asked by Mr. Sunil. He has asked that what are the real-time applications of OLED?
So you have OLED TVs nowadays coming. So already LG is marketing OLED TV. So we have OLED fat panel displays once you make. So you can make OLED TVs. They are quite expensive, around 1.7 lakhs you have to pay. So if right now they are being imported from Korea, so that is one of the application. Then OLED lighting, but as of now OLED is quite expensive. So we have inorganic LEDs. So if you go for OLEDs, what to say, your cost will come down. If cost will be very high, but it will have a very good life expectancy and clarity. And we can also use for biosensing application. Actually, that is our main work. That was not part of this presentation. I concentrated on OLED. So we can also use it for biosensing application as a part of integrated optic circuits for early diagnostic of diseases such as cancer and diabetes. So this is actually also our need.
There is another question. The question is, she wants to know about the flexible and foldable OLED.
Pardon? Can you repeat?
Question has been raised by Bhagwati Madam. She has asked, what about the flexible and foldable OLED?
Yeah, so in this case, I have used a glass substrate. So if you use a flexible conducting material, then you can go for flexible and flexible OLEDs, which can be really folded and kept in your pocket, like your OLED display phones, which are coming up. So you need a flexible conducting substrate. So the flexible conducting substrate somebody has to manufacture. So just to give a proof of concept, we have taken a glass coated ITO. So if the glass coated ITO is on a plastic substrate which can be folded, then you can get foldable OLEDs.
There is another question by Mr. Sudipta Vikari. He has asked that whether OLEDs have any detrimental environmental impact on living beings.
The manufacturing process of OLED is quite toxic. See, the lithium fluoride what I'm using, which has to be evaporated is very toxic to the environment. So the way it has to be released into the environment, there is some protocol. So if it is accidentally inhaled, you need to go to a poison center. So some of the components which you are evaporating as an organic components, when it is in evaporated state, it is quite poisonous. So manufacturing process of OLED, you need some kind of environmental clearance, and if it is done on a large scale, definitely it will affect. In a small scale for experimental thing, already we are evaporating 1 nanometer, so that will hardly have any effect. So when you are going for a mass scale production of OLEDs, so these things have to be taken into consideration. Some kind of filtration system for the thermal evaporator has to be used. But once fabricated, you have nothing. So the fabrication process itself is little. It's not very what to say. It is, there are some toxic substances involved here.
Sir, one common question is there from the participants. Like, what is the lifespan of OLED?
Very good question. See, the lifespan of OLED without any encapsulation is hardly 12 hours. So the OLED which I just showed you, that was not encapsulated, so it will degrade very rapidly. So you have to do what is known as an effective hermetical sealing. Hermetical sealing means the oxygen should not touch the organic layers once it is fabricated. So to ensure that, you need to do an hermetical sealing. So once you do hermetical sealing, so around 40,000 hours of operation it can withstand. I hope that answers your question.
There is another question by Mr. Suryansh Dongre. He has asked about the band difference between band structures of HOMO and LUMO transitions.
Yeah, good question. So the HOMO and the LUMO band difference depends upon the materials which we are using. See, so that is why we are kind of bridging the gap by using the hole injection and the hole transport layer, electron injection, electron transport layer. Otherwise, the band gap between the two layers will be quite huge. So unlike a valence band and a conduction band, you just give one small voltage, the electrons from the valence band go to the conduction band and start conducting. So OLEDs are insulators in general. So to make them conduct, we are you have to do a lot of circuits of this whole transport layer, whole injection layer, kind of step-like balance. We have to go for this kind of band gap. Otherwise, you will have a large band gap, and you need to apply a large potential difference to make the electrons to go. So the manufacturing process of OLED is quite cumbersome and tricky.
Sir, another question by Mr. Shashank Kumar Srivastav. The question is the luminance of phosphorescent OLED with temperature dependency.
Can you repeat the question?
Luminance of phosphorescent OLED with temperature dependency.
No, the thing is, right now we have done work on fluorescent OLED, and we have manufactured a fluorescent OLED. The phosphorescent OLED, first of all, those materials are quite what to say, more toxic. Like we have to go for some kind of radium and such kind of materials where metal organic compounds we have to embed on that to have a triplet exciton. So the light output of a phosphorescent OLED will be very high, but it has a very specific application in some of the scientific laboratories. As such, phosphorescent OLED is not used for commercial purpose. We usually go for fluorescent OLEDs for lighting and commercial purpose, like flexible flat panel displays. As far as my knowledge goes, where I have not worked much on phosphorescent OLEDs, that's why my topic was on fluorescent OLEDs. So the phosphorescent OLEDs, you need to have specialized fabrication units and lot of safety precautions before doing it, and it has a specific application, and the cost will go 10 times higher.
There is another question. How OLED is different than normal conventional LED?
Actually, I have explained that in the slide. So you have valence band and conduction band in our conventional LED, and you have an atomic framework. The electrons are bounded by an atom. That is what you consider. In a OLED, what will happen is we are talking about a molecular framework where 2-3 atoms are combining together, and electrons will end up loosely being bound. So we go for what is known as a Jablonski energy level diagram, where you give the energy level of molecule by highest occupied molecular orbital and lowest unoccupied molecular orbital, something similar to your valence band and conduction band in inorganic LED. And to make a light glow in organic light emitting diode is quite difficult as compared to a conventional LED.
Sir, I think there is no any question, any more questions over there. Sir, one participant wants to know that how to utilize OLEDs in building.
In?
How to utilize OLEDs in building.
I didn't get you.
How to utilize OLEDs in building? Like
Building. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's what you are talking about lighting. So if you have to use OLED for lighting, the cost will be very high. See, now we are having these LED bulbs. These are our inorganic LEDs. So you have some kind of life expectancy. So the OLED we use for kind of specialized lighting. So like want some display devices for the shops like blue and green, you want to display and tell something. So that kind of applications you can use OLED, because to generate a white light from OLED is a little messy process, because we have to combine that emissive layer. Lot of organic material need to be combined to get the white light output. So the cost will go 100 times higher. Whereas if you want a green light, red light, then it can be easily be generated. So kind of display boards and all, we can use more effectively OLED instead of normal lighting.
Thank you, Professor Narayan, for this wonderful presentation. We hope that all of you have found this session very informative. Here I would like to thank all the participants for your patience and cooperation throughout the webinar session. We are privileged to have in attendance so many distinguished participants and our honorable speaker. I would like to conclude by again thanking Professor Narayan, who has honored us by accepting our invitation to present this wonderful webinar. We hope to listen from you soon, sir. I also want to thank you all for your active participation throughout the session. Feedback link has been given in the chat box. Kindly fill it up the same for the successful generation of the e-certificate, which you will get within 14 working days. Thank you all again. Thank you, the professor. Now I want to request our respected principal sir to say a few words. Thank you all again.
Thank you, Professor Ghosh. Can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible. Yes, sir, you are audible.
Okay. So really, throughout the session, I have seen the presentation and the beautiful talk given by our honorable speaker today, and really I find it very informative and very fruitful session on this specific topic, OLEDs. It will be very helpful for the young researchers who will thinking or who have already started working in this domain. And really, it's our honor and my privilege that, sir, you have accepted our invitation and given this wonderful talk in this today's session. And I hope in future He will also keep our invitation and many more informative and important session we will enjoy from your side. And as I can see, the feedback is outstanding. The means most of the participants are writing very informative session. It is very useful, excellent speech. So thank you very much to the participants that you have also given your important time, and obviously the heartiest thanks to our honorable speaker, Dr. Narayan. Dr. Narayan, and actually, on behalf of whole IMPS college, I would like to thank him. And in future, sir, hope we will get more further uh, in this kind of informative session from your side, sir. So really, we enjoyed it a lot. It was a very informative one. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. I thank Dr. Sudipta Ghosh and HOD Electrical Engineering for giving me an excellent opportunity for presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Good night.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you. Good night, sir. Good night, sir.
Good.
Participants, please fill up the feedback form after clicking the link provided for the successful generation of the e-certificate. You will get your e-certificate and the email ID which you will provide in the feedback form within 14 working days. Thank you.
Can't